Well, hello, welcome to Thursdays with Broker Bob. It's your fabulous broker here, back from Europe. Had a great time. I'll share some stories later. I want to welcome everybody to today, and I hope the intent of these calls is to introduce agents in our office to the other agents that have been through the good stuff, the bad stuff, and the ugly stuff. And I'm really excited about today's interview. Our guest today, we go back since I first came to the Market Center, and I believe she was pretty recent to the Market Center as well. And I have one fond memory, and I'll share that with her once I introduce her. So one fond memory of her and Ashley early on, and I'm like, who are these two women? But anyway, it was kind of a story that I'll share that. But I want to welcome our very own Susan.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, and I always mispronounce your name, but
Gedestad, but I like the way you say it. It sounds like you're from Germany.
Yeah, I know, because my German just kicks in, is what it does.
That's it. That's it. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so I'll share the memory. You want to hear it?
If it's
kosher,
yes.
It was you and Ashley when I was early on, and I don't think I was even with the productivity coach yet. I think I was still an agent in the office, and I caught you and Ashley outside the office down on India Street, and you were smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, oh my God, they smoke.
I had a feeling it might be something like that. You see, I'm all blushed.
That's okay. I mean, I've done it too in the past.
I came in 2005, so Ashley and I had came in right after I did. So yeah, we had a little time to bond in the early days.
So I figure if you guys were sharing a smoke outside, like, okay, let's go have some detox and de-stress.
There's no better conversations than in the smoking circle.
And that's why I hope it's okay to share that story, because I thought, oh, this is what it's all about. They're just trying to detox from this stressful situation here.
Yep, that was it.
All right. So welcome. It's 2022. How are you doing in 2022 right now in this market that's, I wouldn't say free falling, it's correcting itself, it's modifying.
Yeah, it's doing exactly what we were expecting it might do, right? I mean, I don't think we could sustain that level and that craziness for any much longer. I mean, it gone on a long time. Obviously, it crashed when the pandemic hit. That was a weird 8 weeks, 12 weeks in that first, everything falling out. And then, boy, oh boy, came back with a vengeance, with everybody wanting more space, more air around them, some outside space, offices in the house. And boy, I don't think any of us saw that coming. So yeah, 2022, so far, so good. I mean, I'm on track to have one of my best years.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Were you busier than ever since post-pandemic?
I have been quite busy, quite consistent, which I'm grateful for.
Good.
I'm of an age now that consistency suits me better than the huge highs and the huge lows. So and I guess what my ultimate message today will be: if you work hard enough consistently, you'll end up, you do get there, because you treat people well, and referrals carry your business.
So one of the things we attempt to answer for people on this call, a lot of them are either brand new, they've been in less than a year, maybe they've been in for 5 years and are still kind of chugging along. I'd like to take most top agents back to where they first got in the business and talk about what their first year looked like. Do you think, some of your biggest successes and failures in that first year? And how was your first year in the business?
Well, I came in 2005, about mid-year. I started at 1st of May, and the market was just hitting its peak before it ultimately ended up crashing in 2008. So there were signs of it late 6 and even in 7. But when I came in 2005, I had no real estate experience except buying my own home. And I sold 2 homes that year. One of them was a mobile home to my own parents. So just to give you a sense, be patient with yourself, be graceful with yourself, because the first couple of years, you're just you're just scraping and you know, doing what you can. But when I came in May of 2005, I was starting from scratch. I did have a database because I had had my own independent brokerage firm calling on gift shops throughout the county. So I did know a lot of people, and I knew the county, which helped. I knew I drove all over, so I really knew all different parts of San Diego, which was great. I will say all those contacts from my gift business ended up, I don't think I ended up, maybe with one referral from that. But it gave me a little bit of confidence to feel like I had a database, which, so my successes in that first year, the smartest thing I did, at that time, there were other options than Keller Williams having a lot of programs in place as they do today. But I did a Brian Buffini class, and his focus is all relational selling. And that's suited to me. That's the kind of agent I am. I don't do one-offs. I don't do marketing to strangers. I really knew that for me to be happy long-term, I would have to have a relational business.
So you're not power prospecting to FSBOs and expires and circle prospecting?
I'm not.
Oh, good.
I'm not. There's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't fit my personality. I'm a high D, and I'm also, I guess it would be a high I. I do connect with people very comfortably. I've been a peddler my whole life. I started selling before I was allowed to work. I would get odd jobs selling, and I started work the day after 16, because on my birthday I was getting my license so that I could go have freedom. But so Brian Buffini was a big. There was a few of us. Judy Ames Stevens was in there, and Scott, Neil, and we were all new. We would all just come in, and none of us really knew what we were doing. So that set a good precedence for me to touch people, to connect with people. And I'm not always the best at the 33 touches and all the great, wonderful programs Keller Williams has in place, but I make meaningful touches, a phone call, a handwritten letter. I sent for the first, 8 years, I sent a monthly newsletter. And I literally had them printed. I folded them myself. I stamped them myself. I mean, I lost about a day and a half a month. But it was consistent, and people always commented on it. So, when spring would hit, I would always do the markets, the produce markets, the street. What's my word, Robert? I'm struggling with my words.
Street fairs or the
the farmer's market. I would always send a farmer's market schedule out, and that was always a big one. And then when concert season would hit, I'd send a Humphreys, because I love live music. It's something that I'm passionate about. So I would, share that. And so just things that you care about, people notice that it's actually coming from you, and you're not just phoning it in. So meaningful touches I learned really early on, thanks to that Buffini program. And again, I think they're still alive, but you guys, Keller Williams comes so far in Ignite and Bold and all the things to help, give you guys outlines, give everybody outlines to make good touches. But that was a big success. The biggest struggle that year was, how do I get business? So I did have the name tag, and I always wore it. And I sparked up conversations everywhere I went. Anybody who noticed and asked me something. And I learned that you actually have to ask for business. That was a big aha for me. I used, who do you know that might appreciate the level of service that I offer? I used that a lot, and it just came natural. It wasn't schmarmy. It wasn't hardcore salesperson-y. It was just, this is what I'm doing. And boy, I'd love to help anybody that you might care about, because, I know what kind of service I offer. And once you sort of figure that out, it's easier to ask for business, because you're not in that first year or two, it's hard because you don't know a lot. I spent the first year, and I closed 2 deals in that first year, which was a 7-month period, as I mentioned. But most of that time I was in classes. I was learning. And there finally came a point in 2006, probably late six, that I realized I've got to get out of the classroom and I've just got to go do this.
Uh-huh.
Because the classroom is very safe and comfortable, and it's good. It's good. You need to learn. But there is a point when you have to sort of step off and go through the growth and the scary part.
Hmm.
So that was important for me. That was a big success in the long run, because I finally sort of stepped out and went for it.
What changed in your mind, do you think?
I think getting a few contracts and closed sales under my belt, I got a little more confidence.
Hmm.
Because there is a point in the beginning, and I've told my kids this their whole lives. There is a point in life when it's important to fake it till you make it. And in real estate, I've never did it apply so much, because I had to sort of pretend confidence in that first couple few years, because I really didn't know, and I hadn't been through all the different scenarios. 17 years later, I've seen a lot, and I can really guide people. I feel confident and safe guiding people, but in the beginning you don't. And so there's nobody wants to work with a non-confident agent, because they really want to feel safe. That's the biggest thing they want, is to feel like they can trust you and feel safe. So yeah, that was the change in mindset, was just getting a little more confidence.
So 15, 16 years in the business, would you say you've never ever called your broker for input advice on something?
Well, you know the answer to that. I've called my broker many times. I don't know. I'm probably not a huge caller to you, but I've had many pickles that I call Robert or Mark, or in the old days it was Leona. So I probably talked to Leona before Robert took over, maybe 5 or 6 times. And Robert, I'm sure I've hit you up probably 6 or 8 times since you.
Yeah, and I bring this up only because you make the point. Early on, you don't know much, and you got to fake it till you make it. But even 15, 16 years in the business, you're not going to know everything. You're going to run across a scenario that's completely like, what do I do here?
I just had it 3 months ago. I was in you because of the tenant in place, and we were talking about it yesterday. That's why I had something to say. Yeah, no, I just went through it. So no, you guys are, well, it's the reason I've been at one company for 17 years, because it's important to feel confident in your broker and feel like you have the legal protection, because Lord knows we put ourselves in this business. There is a level of liability that can be downright scary if you don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
That word fiduciary duty is something as broker, I always try and convey fiduciary duty to your principals. So
Always. And I have this conversation. I just had it last night with a brand new client that I met with. I have to say it out loud, because I struggle. This is one of my biggest craws with our business. It is legal to double end, but I find it terribly unethical. And I said to my buyer, if you decide to work with me, I have a fiduciary duty to you to get you the best deal. And every time I sign a listing agreement, I have a fiduciary duty to get them the most money. And I don't know how I can do that for the both of you if I'm doing it at the same time. So when those situations come up, and when I have a listing, I will refer the buyer who insists on working with me. I explain to them, I won't get you the best deal if I'm representing both sides, but I know an agent that I trust and I know will take good care of you. And boy, it just takes all that liability off your plate. And I'm not willing. As I said, I'm at an age that I have 2 desires: to never be in jail and to never be in court over being sued. So the jail might be my old days when I was a little more rambunctious. So I could probably let that one go. But the court one is still very real and very alive. I just don't. I don't have the time, energy. I just have to follow Mark's emails and Robert's guidance.
I can't, broker thanks you for not wanting to double in. And of course, that's why we have an office policy. It's allowed, yeah, in the state of California, but you have to have my approval to do it in our office because of the liability that's carried with it. And there are some scenarios that it's completely warranted and justified.
I've done it once. I've done it one time in 17 years, because it was just the right it was the right situation and the seller asked me to.
Yeah.
But that, I've had opportunity to do it obviously many, many times. But it doesn't make sense to me.
All right. So that was your wins, your first few years in the business. Any massive failures or failures?
Oh, of course. Oh, for sure. A lot. I mean, I have had many bouts with burnout. They usually come with knucklehead clients when it's not a good fit. When they suck me dry with. I'll tell you what. I'm going to go back even further. I think what it really stems from is when your clients don't trust you. And some people just aren't trusting. We don't have the best reputation in our industry.
Mhm.
So sometimes people feel like they have to, they're almost negotiating, they're almost working against you. And I just said this last night in this meeting. I said, listen, one commission to me is not worth my career.
Mhm.
So, if the reality is, if you're not feeling comfortable with me, I'm probably not feeling comfortable with you. So, it really goes back to, if you are good at what you do and you protect your clients, they will naturally trust you. And when there's trust and respect, you're not going to get that burnout. But oh my gosh, have I had some bad bouts in the past? Really not in the last few years, because I think I'm getting to a place where I actually decline clients if I really feel like it's not a good fit.
Mhm.
But that's the luxury that you don't get in your first 5 years. That I understand that sounds a little odd to say, but when we know our value, we're not going to spend our energy on knuckleheads.
Mo, the vice chairman of the board, early on, I learned from her, said no transaction is worth our reputation and our
It's absolutely
soul. I'll add, and our soul, because it
well,
is.
and that's right. And what happens for me when I go through a rough one, it's happened several times, not, I can probably count on one hand, I will shut down for 3 months. I mean, I'll think, why am I doing this? What am I doing? Who am I really? And it takes me to a dark place, because I do have that, even though I have a high D, I really like to connect and
Mhm.
I'm a bit of a pleaser also, which is a weird combination. So
Mhm.
when that doesn't feel good to me, oh, it's just, I don't like it at all.
Mhm.
And as I age, I'm getting better at saying, oh, well, that's your problem, not mine. The wisdom of age is real. It's a real thing.
So,
Yeah.
so that thing about knowing when to say no to somebody, and then, but how many times a day? I tell people, if you're not saying you want to quit 3 to 4 times a day, something's not right with you, and that's okay to do that.
Yeah, especially in the beginning. I'm sure I said it to myself 3 or 4 times a day. Now I don't. I appreciate, because I've gotten all these years later to a referral based business, and people call me, and over the weekend I got an email from a past client and said, hey, I want you to meet this guy. He and his wife are looking, and and then I thank everybody, and we go on our way, and I have these like-minded people, and that will all come to everyone with persistence and with time. Now
Mhm.
that's my business model, because that's what referral-based business is what I've chosen. If
Mhm.
I was doing FISBOs and expired and that's a whole different experience, and probably way more fruitful and productive for the hard worker, because I'm a hard worker on this type of business. And it's different. My numbers, I just popped them down before. I 2 houses in the first year, 5 houses the next year, 7 houses the next year, 6 the fall. I mean, it was this year, the last few years, I'm usually around between 11 and 14, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to hit 18 this year. And
Mhm.
I'm 8 in. Well, I have 1 closing today, which is 8. So I'm a little behind track, to get another 10 in before before the next second half of the year.
And you're talking units, because you're always
I'm,
focused on just the units.
I'm talking units, yeah. Fortunately, with the referral based business, my price points have really gone up. I mean, of course, they've gone up with our prices going up anyway, but my clientele base has certainly, I'm not selling a lot of under $600,000 homes at this point. I still have them because I'm referral based.
Mhm.
But that helps. That certainly, my overall numbers are certainly better. But I would like to stay, above 15, if get to that above 15 point. And then I can have a life. I can close 12 to 24 transactions a year ideally, and still be able to breathe and, take weekends off occasionally. And, because
Mhm.
I don't know about you guys, but I work a lot.
Mhm.
I mean, but people ask me, well, what's your work schedule? Well, I'm a realtor, so I mean, I try to set boundaries, but my kids are grown and they're both gone, so it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, you get me more, but sometimes I have to stop and pull back and sit, actually step off.
Yeah.
I'm still that's still a challenge for me.
Okay. So you said you started with that database of people you knew, and how many people was that? And then how big is your database today, and how do you grow it?
That database was about 250 in the early days, and then over the years, I changed that. I you have to keep weeding through, because I'm not gonna even bother with people who I know are just I don't know. There's just a feeling. So today my database is under three, like 284 to in the low 280s. Um, but it's a fruitful, I've got probably a good 40 of them who are my A team, that when they think real estate, they think me. And they
Mhm.
actually tell people, you got to work with her. This referral I just referred to, this happened in the last couple days. He told me last night, well, Tom says you're a really good negotiator. And I said, well, it's my favorite part of the business. I like to win. And they
Mhm.
got all excited, like, okay, this, I mean, but if you're authentic and you're real about it, it is my favorite part of the business. I,
Mhm.
I love I love to look at my listings. My price per list price to sales price ratio before I just went a half a million over was 14%. So now I'm probably at about 17%.
Mhm.
That's because people, I can tell my sellers how important it is for them to price a little bit low and trust. Now, granted, we're going to start shifting, and I'm going to have to adjust that. But
Mhm.
when you're confident and what something's going to sell for, let the buyers escalate it. So anyway, I guess my point is I'm sidetracking. Um, I kind of lost track there, Robert. I'm sorry. Put me back on the
That's
rails.
well, you're talking about working with your database and only referral only.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. So no, I'm always weeding my referral, but my database. But that's my fruit. That's my bread and butter.
we'll get
Um,
back to pricing in today's market. I want to know how you do it. But that you said your database is about 260 or so, 260, 280.
280,
And
yeah, yeah.
you built it from, probably those original people that you built aren't there anymore, but you
There,
added.
yeah, they're most of them are not there anymore. In fact, I would probably say 95% aren't there anymore. But in life, you make connections especially when you have kids and you live in a community. Um, so I have all my family, cousins. I'm from a very large family. I have some cousins in town. Um, and my network through my Point Loma Ocean Beach connections.
Mhm.
Yeah, just there are people that have randomly that are in my database that reached out to me through my ratings on Zillow, and so that does come about.
Mhm.
But I pretty much know, personally, I know over 90% of my database.
That's good. That's really good.
Right.
So you're not a database builder where you're putting everybody you ever meet into it
I'm
and all
not.
these cold leads and.
I'm not. And I'm also not a Facebook person that accepts every invitation. I just, again, I hate to keep referencing age, but I often wonder if I'm just, at the point where I want to know, I want intimacy. Because that's more productive for me. And I'm going to get more out of it with intimacy. You know, I just think it's more effective.
You're speaking to me, Susan. You're speaking to me. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm on social media and I get a lot of friend requests and I'm like, I don't know yet. Because this is, I don't do business on Facebook. It's more for me for personal stuff. So that's my
Yeah,
world.
yeah. And you know, yeah, I just don't have the time to, if I'm gonna be on it, and I'm not so great at Facebook as you guys who are, you know, obviously in the office. I do a lot of, you know, if I'll put my new listings up, I need to do a little more personal stuff, but I don't communicate with people through Facebook typically.
Mhm.
I really,
So you're not Chris Spade.
no, and God bless him, he's wonderful and he's so good at what he does. And so in other words, there's no wrong way to do it. I'm just telling you how I do it.
Mhm.
It's there's an, you know, it's a maybe a little more old-fashioned way,
Yeah.
but for me, it's very effective.
So this 280, how then do you work this 280 in your database? How are you working your database?
I typically I try to send 2 letters a year, and not just but I actually write a letter, typically at May, around the time of my anniversary, because I like to say to them, can you believe it's been 17 years? You know, I just hit that anniversary in May. And then it's just a chance to kind of, you know, tell them how I am. I always talk about just a brief mention of, you know, what's happening in the business, you know, how the market's shifting or where we're heading, where I think we're heading. And then I also, because I know over 90% of them, I say what Eilish is doing, what my daughter's doing, and I say what my son's doing. And, you know, I went through a divorce, I shared that. And, you know, I'm very personal because I know these people. This is not, you know, and then I always close it with, you know, your referrals are my lifeblood, and I'm so grateful for what I do. And if you know anybody that you care about that would appreciate me, I would be honored to work with them.
Mhm.
And then I do the same thing usually around Thanksgiving. I don't like to get caught in the Christmas shuffle because we all get, you know, lots and lots of Christmas cards. So I usually send, last year it was a postcard because I didn't have the time to do the big letter I wanted to do, but it was just a beach scene that said, thankful for you, you know, and then on the other side, you know, it was just so I don't do as many touches as we're taught to, and I'm sure you all are doing, but when I do them, they're personal and they're intimate, and I actually get texts and calls and people, and then when I see them 3 weeks later, a month later, they go, oh, that was so great. You know, unfortunately last Christmas I said I was going to put myself out and start dating, so I've had to field so many questions, and I'm like, nope, not yet, nope, not yet.
Well,
So that
that'll
was
be,
but it makes people ask me questions, and it you can tell I use it because I want to gauge how, you know, what kind of engagement I'm getting, and that was a good reminder. People are reading it.
well, we'll have to bring you back for another conversation about Susan's dating life.
No, let's not. There wouldn't be anything to talk about.
So those 2 newsletters are twice a year, snail mail.
I did, yes, I know. I'm old
Okay, that's
fashioned.
okay.
Yeah,
And
and then I'll send, you know, occasionally, you know, no, I don't do a lot of mass email marketing, but I'll touch base and I'll make phone calls and just, you know, one phone call I'll suggest, and I'm saying out loud to remind myself, is after you sell somebody a house and they're in it for 3 months, they always appreciate a follow-up. You know, just hey, thinking about you guys, how's it going? You know,
Mhm.
anything I can do for you, even though we're not, you know, we're out of our fiduciary duty, but just that's something that not all of us do. And I try to do it. I don't, and I miss it sometimes. And then I realize how crappy that is, because it's such an intimate experience you go through with people, talking every day for sometimes months in a row.
Yeah.
So just to sort of, you know, remind them that you actually do care and you're still thinking about them. And then a lot of my clients become friends. It's sometimes hard to manage, but you know, I'm taking 4 people to dinner next Friday because one had referred me to the other, and we just did our 3rd deal with the other. So I'm taking my clients and the people that referred me 14 years ago, you know, to dinner. So I do things like that. I actually see people and
Much more intimate.
sit down and drink wine with them and thank them. Yeah.
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 But I'm a personal touch person. So all you're going to hear from me is make it intimate, make it real, have real relationships.
And that's important for people to hear, because everybody gets in and they're coached into do this, do that, go here, go there. And a lot of them just get so overwhelmed. Well, what do I do? And what Susan sounds like Susan's done really well is adapt to her behavior profile about what works for her to make her comfortable with her database and her sphere of influence. And she's not modifying it, doing 33 touches a year, which is okay in some regards.
It's okay when you've been doing it this long and it's working. I think when you're starting, you got to go like I took bold, and I've never been so uncomfortable to touch 100 people. Like, oh my God, that was torture for me. I took it once, but I encourage you all to take it, to stay in it. But for me, to make quick calls and say, who do you know? What do you got? That was really, really hard for me, really hard. But it got me out of my comfort zone, and there was some learning in it as well. But that is certainly not my style.
Susan and I, before people showed up, we were talking about comfort zones, and she was asking how I'm doing in Chicago, and I said I definitely am out of my comfort zone, and that means you go into your growth zone, you grow, and that period is not comfortable at all. So if you're feeling like you're in the business and you're uncomfortable, that's because you're growing. And you got to give yourself credit for that. And that's okay, because this business will tax you and challenge you and make you say every day, why am I doing this? But that uncomfortable thing that you do, and Susan, when she says she took bold, got uncomfortable, it just helped her get to the next level where she needed to be, even with her own little, not her own sphere of influence and how she wanted to manage that.
Yeah, and it is little in the big picture. It's not a huge database, but it's a juicy database. It's a fruitful database. It doesn't
have to be big. It can produce enough to make. Would you say you're making a pretty decent living being an independent contractor?
I would say that.
As opposed to working for someone else?
Absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I have, when my kids were growing, I could hit every baseball game, hit every, all of their events, because I just scheduled it in, and there's no other business that, I didn't have to answer to somebody in that regard. That was huge for me. That was a big part of why I got in it, is so that I could, be that present parent. And you can do that if you don't let people suck you dry, which is part of learning boundaries, and with time that, that's critical, or you will burn out. You have to, because it'll kill you if you don't.
Yeah. So any new ideas, if you were talking to a new agent to adapt in the business today, anything about today's market that you would give them recommendations on?
Well, I'm a big person on strategy, and if I'm typically, if I'm getting a warm lead, which is a referral, I come in with some level of respect to start with, which is really lovely, because being able to help people, if first of all I educate, and once I educate, I tell them what their options are. We can, if we price it this way, the chances of escalating are, I'll give them sort of percentages and sort of ideas, versus if we price it up here and then we chase it down. But because I can show them through educating them that I know what I'm doing and they can trust me, I tend to be able to be the driver,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really kind of the only way to get good at it, is to be able to drive, because if the clients are driving the conversation of how to price their home, it's not going to go well.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, gaining trust is important, and the only way I do that is because I know what I'm doing. It's not, you can't fake it till you make it with building trust. So yeah, I think that lead with educating, come with contribution, come with showing them, separate from being an agent. This is, use stats. You have to use stats. You can't just BS your way through educating someone.
So how are you pricing in today's market then? That was the question we talked about earlier.
If I can, as much as 5% below what I really think it's going to sell for,
Okay.
between 3 and 5%.
Mhm.
Now with this little shift we're having right now, I'm probably going to be a little more conservative. I just priced it about 3% low in La Mesa recently. That's the one that's closing today or tomorrow. And I got nervous because I was just on that cusp of timing where things were shifting down. And instead of getting offers in 3 days, it took 8 days. And
Mhm.
we did ultimately get.
Oh, hells.
I know,
Hells.
right? But in my mind, I'm thinking, oi, 8 days, what have I done wrong? Have I, and we ended up 50,000 above on a $800,000 purchase or sales price. But, had we priced it at 850, it would have been 60 days and we would have had to come down to 8.25 or maybe closer to 8. But by pricing it at 795, we ended up at 850. So I'm just a huge believer in that. Don't ever overprice, because all it will do is frustrate your seller and cost you a lot of money and time, and most of anything, heartache and energy. Because I stress when my clients stress. I unfortunately,
You internalize it.
I feel it.
Because people on the call, write this down. So what Susan's talking about is she's big on strategy. So pricing is more of a strategy than a determination of value. And that strategy is to get the most amount of eyeballs on the home so that the offers start coming in. If it's overpriced in relationship to the market and the comps, then the public will know that right off the bat. So think about where the market is. And Stephen and his team up in LA, they're pricing, if it's below $1 million price range, they're going 50,000 below the most current active. That's the most current comp that's like them. And if it's above $1 million, it's $100,000 below the most active in their area.
So that's the 5% rule as well for the under million. Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to best serve your seller. And then right now, when you're representing buyers, because I do both, be careful, because people aren't getting offers thrown at them, except in certain communities like University City. Like, there's certain pockets that are still experiencing what we've been through the last year. But most of the communities are not. So be careful not to let your people, overpay. The other part for me is in the peak of the pandemic, when things were crazy, it was actually an agent that used to be with our office had a listing in University City, and he had overpriced it. And it was the only thing that hadn't sold in all of University City. And so in the peak of this crazy market, we were able to go in and get 150 below list price, representing a buyer, which was unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
But if you realize, look, this guy's been on for 40 days. We don't have to you love the house, but we don't have to give him that. So, it's just knowing the areas you're working in. You have to know more than your clients do. And if you can show them, what's sold recently, and I mean, that's all good and well. What we've been through the last 2 years, the people throwing money at things, that I don't know. I don't pretend to know all that.
That was ridiculous.
That was insane. Yeah.
I sent you a list of questions in advance too, and one of them is about your schedule. So you say you work all the time, but do you have a schedule?
I do. Before I hurt my knee, I would get up and go dance every morning. My mornings always started with exercise. Right now, I'm my couple mornings a week I'm doing PT, so that's my big exercise. Yeah, that's staying in the elderly theme. So yeah, I think getting up and moving my body first is my first line of duty. And then I don't sit. I feel bad to even share this, because I don't sit for a 3-hour chunk, or depending on the timing. But I just do it in other ways. I'll reach out to somebody. I'll text. I'll call. You know, but yeah, I do have a schedule. I'm always up, usually by between 7:30, do some
Mhm.
workout, you know, come home, usually catch up on my phone a little bit, and then dive in. Sometimes I realize it's 6 at night or 7 at night and I haven't gotten a shower yet. But then other days you know, my sister was in town and we went to the beach on Tuesday. You know,
Mhm.
we spent the afternoon sitting on the beach. So there are, you know, there is flexibility in that. I'm in a little bit of a lull right now. I'm not uh, the demand on me is not as great as it is at times. So I have finally learned, it's taken me all these years, actually about the last 5 years, I've gotten good at, I've been leaning into when I'm not crazy busy and actually stepping off and doing things for myself. And then when I'm busy, I just say, this will pass. Let me just ride it and, you know, be committed. So I used to worry terribly when I would go into my quiet, you know, because we're always planning for 6 months ahead. We're always planning for our paychecks 3 months from now, 6 months from now.
Mhm.
So yes, I've gotten way better in all these years at leaning into when it's a little quieter and saying, okay, well, I need this little break, you know, I need this little step off. But I never quite really say fully. I'm always thinking about, because I have bills to pay. I have a mortgage. I have kids. I have, you know, I don't have the luxury of, you know, playing at this business. This business is
Yes.
sustaining me.
All right. So final question. If you were to go coach your younger Susan self in first year in the business, what would you say to Susan?
That's a good question. Probably relax would be the first thing. Relax, take a breath. You know, you have a work ethic. Just just follow, don't reinvent the wheel, get out of your own way. Just do what you're supposed to do. It will naturally happen if you work hard at it. This is not a business for the faint of heart or those that are lazy and want to slide through. Good luck. I don't know how it would work, but relax. I would say you're going to be fine. Just do the work. It's that simple. Just do what uh, we know works, and make contacts, however that is, whether it's door knocking, do open houses, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But just be patient, relax, and know that trust that if you treat people well, you will always have a return.
So just for a breakdown for me, what I heard is strategy, your database, relax, be authentic, and just take care of people.
Take care of people, work hard, and take care of yourself too.
Definitely that. All right. Well, Susan, I appreciate your time. We'll
You're
end by saying goodbye right now. And Broker Bob's going to go out and get into his growth zone. He's going to get in a car, go to an appointment in Chicago. So I'm not used to driving already in Chicago, but we'll see if I get there.
Be safe.
We'll
Thanks for
talk to you
coming,
later.
you guys.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate your time.
Anytime. Bye-bye.